Good morning, all of you. Today we are into the second session of a introduction to research class. So in the first class, we already discussed what research is, and I've given you a small definition of what research is. It is basically a systematic investigation to find answers to your queries or your questions, and then using that information to find out something new or to add to an existing body of knowledge. So it is a systematic investigation. So for each and every systematic investigation, there need to be a process associated with it. So we call it as, when you do research, there is a process associated to do a research, and we call that particular process as a research process. So that is called research process. So when it comes to process, a systematic investigation, there should be a particular steps to be followed. One after the other only you can do a research. So that is the term meaning why it is called systematic. It should be systematic in the sense the researcher has to have complete control over the research. It should be rigorous. It should be valid, verifiable. Then for that you require a systematic research. For you have to follow a particular process in research, and that particular process is called a research process. And there are 8 steps in a research process. You cannot skip any of the steps in a research process. This has to be mandatory followed for each and every research, whichever profession you are into it. Whether it be in marketing research, whether it be in operations research, whether it be in HR research or any area, you need to follow these 8 steps when you do a research. So let me ask you a question. You are going to plan for a trip. You are going to have a trip. So what is the first thing that you are going to plan? Is it the number of dresses you are going to take? Is it the umbrella you are going to carry along with it? Is it the mode of transportation which you are deciding? What is the thing which you are planning, which you think about in the first place when you think about a trip? Any clue? Obviously it is the destination. Where are you going to go? That is the first thing, that is the destination, where the last point is the destination. Then all the planning, all the implementation, all the working, all will be based upon the destination where you have to reach. So for research also, you plan your research based upon a problem. Without a problem, you cannot continue with the research. So that is the first and most important step in research. If you are able to identify a problem, 80% of your research is complete over there. So the first and preliminary step is you formulate the research problem. Research problem is the first step in your research process. Research problem. So what now comes to your mind is, why do I select that particular destination? Why should I go there? Or when it comes to research, how can I find a problem? How can I formulate a problem, or what will be the problem, etc. So how will you identify a problem? So that is a complete elaborate area of finding a problem area, refining that particular problem, making it into too specific, and you formulate that. That is why it is called formulating a research problem. So now we have the outbreak of coronavirus. So your problem is coronavirus. Then you need to formulate your problem. How coronavirus? What do you want to do about coronavirus? What is the problem of coronavirus, etc. So the next step is formulating a research problem. So that we'll be dealing in our later chapters. So basically you need to find out an area, you need to specify it, and you need to formulate it. Problem. That is, it's equivalent to finding a destination for a trip. So that is the term meaning what is called formulating a research problem. Once you formulated your research problem, this is the problem which I am dealing with, this is what I am facing with, etc. Next step is, how are you going to do, or how are you going to solve that particular problem? That is, if you are able to identify your research problem, a major portion of your research is complete along with it. And the next step, once you identify your problem, next step is how you're going to go along with that particular problem, how you're going to overcome the particular problem, how you're going to face that particular problem, how will you reach there, how will you reach out there. So that step we call it as the research design. How are you going to design your research? So you have heard about a few terms that comes under research. You have heard about primary data, you have heard about secondary data, you have heard about sampling, you have heard about population. So all these things will be listed here in this particular process, which is called the research design. That is, who will be the population of your study? Who from the population, how are you going to take the samples? From the samples, how are you going to administer each and everything? Whether you are going to conduct a study relating to primary data, or are you going to take secondary data from that particular sample? And finally, when you find something out of the sample, how are you going to conclude it with the help of the population? How are you going to apply it to the population? All these things will be explained in the second phase, which is called the research design, that we have to elaborate in detail in the coming chapters. So first one is formulating a research problem. And how are you going to go ahead with the research problem? That is called the research design. Second step, which is called the research design. And once you have formulated your research design, you know you are going to formulate a study to collect primary data. Your research design consists of primary data. You have identified a sample from a population, and you are going to collect data from that particular sample. So how to take a data? You are going for a structured type of data collection, or you are going for an unstructured type. It can be a qualitative type, quantitative type. So if it is a qualitative type, you can observe the things, you can do a focus interview without any predetermined questions and notions in your mind, etc. Brainstorming, all these things comes under qualitative type of research. But when you think about a structured research, our research is basically structured. So what you do is, based upon the research design you have formulated, you are going to make a instrument or a tool. That is called construct an instrument for data collection. You are going to find out what is the type of tool you are going to apply based upon the research design you have formulated to collect the data. Finally, when we think about applied research, when we think about descriptive research, etc., what comes to your mind should be is, it should be based upon the primary data. The relevance is based upon the primary data. You collect data. How do you collect data? You collect data in a structured method, in an unstructured method. When it comes to a perfect research, it is a structured method which is more often used, and we use an instrument to collect the data. It consists of different types of questions, open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, and demographic values, variables, etc. Everything will be incorporated in an instrument to collect the data. So that is the third step, developing a research tool or a research instrument for data collection. So that is the third step, instrument. So you have a research problem, you formulated a research problem, then you had a research design, you formulated a research design, you made a complete concept of your research design, how you are going ahead or how you are going to tackle your problem. For that, based upon the research design, you have constructed an instrument for data collection. So almost a preliminary step is completed with it. So along with it, what you have to do is, when you identify a research problem, develop a research design, and develop an instrument. An instrument can also be can be taken from the already available literature. You may not develop it new. There can be some instruments which is already developed for this particular purpose. You can use that instrument also. So along with it, you need to do another process in this particular research, that we call it as literature review. Literature review. Literature review. That is, or it is called review of literature. That is, what is the current status of this particular problem, what is the different types of designs being conducted, what are the different types of instruments already available, what are the other people, have any other people taken this particular research area or the research problem, what are their findings, how did they do their research, etc. So along with this, we do a particular area which is called literature review, that will be taking in a next session, what is called a literature review. So first step is research problem, second step is conceptualizing research design, third is instrument for data collection. So almost your preliminary steps are all completed. So what you develop is, you develop a research proposal. That is, you're going to put everything in paper. So this is your problem, stating this is your problem, this is your research design, this is your instrument. All these things will be linked with the type of available literature, and finally you are going to say that this is the type of gap which is available, this is the type of gap, or this is the type of research you are going to do it, and you are stating it as a new type of research because there has not been any other type of research being conducted in the particular area which you have chosen based upon the literature review. There may be other literatures available in this particular area, but not exactly the one you are looking forward for it. So you are going to develop a research proposal. But once more, I forgot to explain this particular point. That is, you construct an instrument for data collection. Once the instrument is ready, along with the research design, what you have done is you have identified a population, you have identified a sample, etc. But your sample identification is coming after you develop an instrument because you need to see that whether that instrument will fit to a particular sample. You can identify a sample in your research design, but you can finalize your sample only once you develop your research instrument. Maybe you are going to, if you are into the health area, you are going to find out something relating to health, those people who are working in health area. So you have doctors, nurses, etc. So you, that is the questions or the information you take from the doctors will be different from that of the nurses. So you are going to develop two instruments, then only you take a sample. This instrument is for a particular sample, this instrument is for a particular sample. That is why the fourth step should come only after the third step. Even though we identified the sample in the research design, that is people working in health industry will be your sample, or the people working in this particular hospital will be your sample, or the people working in hospitals in Kerala will be your sample. But there will be hospitals, you have nurses, doctors, psychiatrists, physiotherapists, so all those people will be dealing with different types of problems or different challenges, etc. So you have to develop instruments and then finalize on the sample which you have taken for the study. So after completing your 4 steps, it's easy for you to do a research proposal. That is, you're going to put everything on the paper what you have planned. Your planning is completely on the paper, and that we call it as a research proposal. So you are halfway through the research design, and when you are reaching the halfway, we say that 90% of the research is complete along with it. So you formulated research, identified a research problem, formulated the research problem, developed a research design. Based upon the research design, you developed an instrument, and once you design an instrument, you identify you channelize your sample accordingly. That is, you say that I take 50 people from this particular area, I take 60 people from this particular area. What is the reason why 50 and why 60? So all these things comes under selecting a sample. Once this is the planning steps, once the planning steps is complete, you do develop what is called a research proposal. So your research proposal consists of different areas. One is your problem statement, second one is your objectives of the study, third stage is your study design, then next is your setting of the study, research instrument, information on sampling and the type of sampling plan you have taken, information on data processing, how you are going to chapterize each and every area in your study, in your research process, etc. All these things comes under research proposal. A research proposal gives you a clear-cut idea of what research you are going to take care of and how are you going to do along with that particular planning process, the implementation phases and the planning phases. So your fifth step should distinguish like this. This is the planning stage. This is the implementation or carry forward stage of your research process. Once you reach this area, it is clear-cut, evident that you are able to continue with your research process. So how do you continue with the research process? Is directly into the research, you collect data. Whatever data you require, you collect your data, and when it is a structured type of data collection, you construct a correct instrument for data collection, identify your sample and then go with data collection. Data can be collected in different methods. One, you administer a questionnaire and conduct an interview, or you give it as a field study, let them fill and give it to you, or else you can conduct an interview based upon the type of questions you have formulated. All these things comes under. And another thing what we do nowadays is we don't go directly to people and give the questionnaire. We mail out the questionnaire to them. We also do nominal focus group interview when it comes to qualitative type of research. So there are different methods of how you can reach out to your sample. So that is not a big issue how you can reach out to your sample. You reach out to your sample, they collect the data which is required and plan based upon your research design. So that is the 6th step, data collection. And once you collect your data, what are you going to do with the data? That is, you are going to summarize, you are going to process the data to come to some conclusions, to come to some solutions, or come to some final values. So in quantitative analysis, we have studied about mean, median and mode. There are n number of values you get. You come to a solution. That is, all the values have a tendency to come to a particular area, and that we call it as quantitatively doing it. And you have different statistical packages to process on this particular data, and one of the packages which we always use for a social sciences studies is SPSS. And so you process your data analysis and process. It's a huge area that we have to deal accordingly. And then finally you have processed your data, you have come to a solution, you have come to a final value or a number. And the type of study, the type of research, it can be descriptive research according to what we have said. It can be a correlational research. It can be an explanatory or an exploratory research, wherever you, whatever you plan accordingly based upon your research design. Based upon that, you get your data value, and once you get your data value, you are coming to your end of your study. You make your findings, you make your suggestions or your recommendations, and finally all the things put together forms the 8th step of the research design process. And 8th step is writing a research report. It's a huge area, it's a bigger thing you have to take care of while you write a report. Report should give you a report when it is read by another person, when it is submitted to another person, or when you completed your research. It should give the correct solution. It should be empirical. All the findings, all the solutions which you have developed should be based upon your research problem, and it should follow, or it should come across with all these 8 steps. So to summarize, we have a systematic design and research process, and to have a systematic design, you have to follow a particular process in research, and that particular process consists of 8 steps. This is called 8-step research process. Without going through any of the steps, you cannot skip any of the steps and come to a particular solution. You need to go across in all the steps when you do, especially when you do a social sciences research. The first one, starting with research problem, you formulate the problem. Then you do a research design, conceptualize the research design, develop the instrument, find out the sample, planning phase is completed. So you make a research proposal. Research proposal gives you a complete clear-cut idea that you are completely aware of your research, and then you do a data collection, process the data, and finally make a research report. So these are the 8 steps in research process. Hope you understood, and I want all of you to write down whatever you got based upon our first session as well as in this particular session. Thank you.